Bird wasn't scary because of what he did. He was scary because he told you exactly how he'd do it.
If Michael Jordan, the most feared man to ever step on a court, says he was scared of Larry Bird, then you already know this story isn't just about basketball stats or flashy highlights. This is something way deeper, something that made even legends sweat before tip-off. Players didn't just fear Larry's skills, they feared his mouth. Larry would look you dead in the eye, tell you exactly how he was about to score on you, then go do it. No hesitation, no mercy. And the craziest part, there was absolutely nothing you could do about it. Even Magic, Dominique, Gary Payton, and Kobe straight up admitted it. They all feared him. So what made Larry Bird so terrifying that even the greats bowed their heads when his name came up? Larry's basketball resume sounds almost fake when you say it out loud. 3 NBA championships, 3 straight MVPs. And that's something only Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain had done before him. 12 All-Star appearances, Rookie of the Year, countless records. His numbers looked like they were created in a video game. On paper, he was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of player who ran his era like a boss. But here's the wild twist. Bird never looked like the unstoppable beast he was. He wasn't out there flying like Jordan or dunking like Dominique, and nobody was calling him to enter a dunk contest. But still, by the mid-'80s, when people asked who the best player in the world was, Bird's name was sitting right at the top. And what really makes it legendary? Where he came from, French Lick, Indiana, a small, rough, working-class town where basketball was more than a game, it was survival. They called him the Hick from French Lick as a joke, but Bird wore that title like armor. He grew up in a big family where money was tight, and basketball wasn't just a passion, it was his ticket out. By the time he hit Indiana State, Larry wasn't just trying to score points. He was trying to drag an entire forgotten program into the national spotlight, and somehow he did it.
Michigan State controls. Donnelly in the backcourt. The key, many feel, to beating Michigan State is to take the early lead. When the Spartans get in front,
that 1979 NCAA championship game against Magic Johnson's powerhouse Michigan State team, still one of the most watched college games in history. Bird didn't win that night. Magic's squad was too stacked, but the fact that he even got Indiana State to that stage was unbelievable. Before Larry, the Sycamores were invisible. After him, they were a part of basketball history forever. Suddenly, boom, they were everywhere. Front page of every sports section, every highlight reel, every conversation in the country. That game against Magic didn't just make good TV, it changed basketball forever. It kicked off one of the most iconic and heated rivalries in sports history. Even though Bird lost that night, his legend only got bigger because everyone realized he wasn't some one-hit wonder. This man was the real deal. So when the Celtics finally landed him, the timing couldn't have been better. Boston had just finished one of their worst seasons ever, only 29 wins in 1979. Then Larry Bird shows up as a rookie, and bam, suddenly they jump to 61 wins, a 32-game turnaround just from one dude. And he didn't take years to adjust to the NBA like most rookies do. Nah, Bird walked in like he'd been running the league for 10 years already, averaging 21 points, 10 rebounds, and nearly 5 assists as a rookie. That's crazy.
Allen level, Princeton brings it down. You see 2 seconds, 1, and the world champion, the Boston Celtics.
But here's what people forget. Larry didn't just transform the team's record. He revived everyone around him. Veterans like Dave Cowens and Tiny Archibald, who everyone thought were washed, suddenly came back to life. Then Red Auerbach went all in. He pulled off the legendary Robert Parrish trade, drafted Kevin McHale, and later brought in Dennis Johnson while keeping Cedric Maxwell. Before long, Boston wasn't just back. They were terrifying. By Bird's second season, they were champions. And if you really know basketball, you understand how rare that is. Rookies don't rebuild dynasties, but Larry did it in real time, in front of the whole world. At first, the reaction across the league was all respect. Players admired his numbers, his toughness, and how he put Boston back on the map. But see, respect only goes skin deep. Fear hits the soul. Fear is when you're already doubting yourself in warm-ups just because of the man standing across from you. Those first few years built the resume, the underdog story, and the comeback. But the real fear, that came later. That's when Bird started calling his shots. Literally. He'd tell defenders exactly what he was about to do, and then do it right in their faces. It wasn't just the usual, "you can't guard me" trash talk everyone throws around. No, Larry made it personal. He didn't talk trash. He gave prophecies. That's what broke people. He made you question your own game before the ball even hit the rim. Imagine someone whispering in your ear, "I'm about to drop a jumper from that wing," and then he drains it in your face without blinking. You're not just losing points, you're losing your mind. And that right there was Larry Bird's specialty, psychological warfare on the hardwood. Take Reggie Miller's rookie year, for example.
I'm like, he's like, I am the best shooter this game, and he's saying it out loud so everyone can see. I'm like, oh my God, he's outing me at my home in front of all my family and friends. I'm the best shooter this game has ever seen.
Reggie grew up idolizing Larry, dreaming of the day he'd share the court with him. Then that moment finally came, and Larry didn't waste a second. He walked right up to the kid and said, "You're the guy they drafted ahead of me, right?" Total lie. Reggie was drafted in '87, Bird in '78, but that didn't matter. Bird wasn't there to make sense. He was there to mess with your head. And for a rookie like Reggie, that was more than enough. Then Bird lit Indiana up, jumper after jumper after jumper, just to make a point. Reggie's told that story for years because it was the day he learned that Bird wasn't just a shooter. He was a straight-up mind-bender. Every game with Larry was like a battle for your confidence. And then there's Sean Kemp.
He let me know from the start of the game what he was going to do. He really did. He let me know. Before the game, he told me, he was like, he just shook his head at me. He said, "Man, it's going to be up nice for you."
So what did he put up?
I think he gave me, I think he gave me 40, 46.
Oh man, Sean was a walking highlight reel. Pure athleticism, pure energy, could jump out of the gym. He was young, explosive, everything the league loved. And Bird, the complete opposite. No bounce, no flash, just cold-blooded skill. You'd think that matchup would be unfair for Larry, right? But Bird didn't need to outjump anyone. He just needed to outthink them. Sean Kemp told it himself, and you can still hear the disbelief in his voice when he talks about it. During his rookie year, he faced Larry Bird for the first time, and Bird didn't waste a single second sizing him up. He looked right at Kemp, called his shot, told him exactly where he'd score, and then went and did it. Swish, just like that. Kemp later admitted that moment shook him to the core, because seriously, how do you defend something like that? You're young, hungry, trying to prove yourself, and this veteran doesn't just score on you. He predicts your failure out loud before it happens. Brutal. And then there's the legendary three-point contest story.
Who come in second? Let's take the picture.
Where'd you place?
He beat me. He beat me that day. He beat me,
One of the coldest moments in NBA history. Bird walks into the locker room before the contest, looks around at every other shooter, and says, "Who's coming in second?" No hesitation, no smile, just confidence. He even added, "Let's take the picture now," as if the event was already over. And the wild part, he meant it. Bird then walked out, hit 11 straight shots in the final round and won the whole thing without even taking off his warm-up jacket. Unreal. The crowd thought it was showmanship, pure entertainment. But for Bird, it wasn't theater at all. He really believed he was the best shooter alive. And then he went out and proved it in front of the entire world. That's what made him different. Anyone can talk trash, but Larry's words weren't empty. They were promises. When Bird called a shot, it was basically a warning. Because once he said it, it was already over. He didn't need explosive speed or fancy handles. What made him terrifying was that he made you think. You'd be second-guessing yourself before he even moved. If you hesitated for half a second, just half a second, the ball was already flying through the air, and you were turning around to see it drop through the net. That's why players feared him, because Bird didn't just beat you once on the scoreboard. He beat you twice, once in your mind and once on the floor. Now, of course, not everyone bought into the Bird mythology. Dennis Rodman, who never handed out respect lightly, wasn't impressed, at least not publicly. He once said Larry wasn't hard to guard, just a fundamentally sound white guy who could shoot. Classic Rodman, always trying to tear down the aura and keep things real. He even took it further, saying Bird wasn't athletic or flashy enough to be scary.
Larry Bird played in this era, I think he'd be in Europe.
But here's the twist. Even in trying to downplay him, Rodman proved Bird's point. Bird didn't terrify people because he was explosive or loud. He terrified them because he mastered the basics so deeply they became unstoppable. Rodman thrived in chaos. He loved unpredictability. But Bird brought calm destruction. He didn't need to trick you with wild moves. He told you what he'd do, then did it anyway, like it was destiny. You'd seen that same jumper 1,000 times, and somehow you still couldn't stop it. That's the genius of Larry Bird's psychological warfare. He weaponized predictability. Every time he called his shot, every time he spoke a play into existence, it made opponents believe they couldn't stop what was coming. Once that belief set in, the game was already over. It was like inevitability disguised as trash talk, and that's what made Larry Bird so haunting. And it wasn't just the rookies or the bench guys who felt that pressure. Even the legends couldn't escape the Bird effect. When you hear stories about him, it's icons who are telling them. And of course, it always circles back to Magic Johnson, because their rivalry didn't just define an era, it built modern basketball. It started with that unforgettable 1979 NCAA championship matchup, the most watched college game ever. And it carried right into the NBA, where Celtics versus Lakers became the heartbeat of the league. Magic has said it over and over. Bird wasn't just a rival, he was the man who pushed him to his absolute limit. That's what made their story so special. Two legends locked in battle, making each other greater every time they met. Magic Johnson was all about showtime. Fast breaks, no-look passes, pure flash and rhythm. But every time he ran into Larry Bird, the energy shifted. Suddenly, Magic's beautiful chaos ran into a man who could slow everything down and kill him with calm precision. Their matchups in the 80s weren't just basketball games, they were events. Every meeting between the Celtics and Lakers felt like a movie premiere. Magic has said it plain and simple. Bird was the toughest competitor he ever faced, and you don't have to take anyone's word for it. The man said it himself. That boy could play, man. He turned it out. When your biggest rival praises you like that, you know it's real.
That boy, he can play, man. He turned it out.
Then there's Dominique Wilkins, the human highlight film himself. Everybody remembers the 1988 Eastern Conference semifinals, one of the most electric duels ever seen on a court. Dominique went nuclear, dropping 47 points, but Bird answered right back with 34 of his own. And it wasn't the numbers that made it legendary, it was the timing. In that fourth quarter, Bird went off. 20 points straight heat, every shot cutting deeper like a dagger. Dominique even called it the best game ever played between two forwards. And though his Hawks lost, he still gave Bird full respect, admitting Larry had something different. That battle became the stuff of legend. Not because one man destroyed the other, but because both of them hit their peak in the same moment. And Bird, cool as ever, walked away with the win. For a player like Dominique, known for confidence and flair, to tip his hat like that says everything about the level of respect Bird demanded, right there in the moment. Then there's Gary Payton, the glove, a man who never stops talking, always chirping, always getting in your face. But even Payton admitted that Bird's trash talk was on another level. He said he was shocked because Bird didn't talk nonsense. He talked details. Payton called it disrespectful and beautiful at the same time, because Bird didn't just talk to get in your head, he talked to prove something. His words came with receipts. He'd tell you exactly how he was about to score and then do it with surgical precision. That's not just a head game, that's a masterclass in execution. Even Kobe Bryant, a student of the game from a completely different era, gave Bird massive respect. Kobe studied everyone, but he paid special attention to Bird's craft. He said he learned how Larry manipulated defenders, how he used his body to carve space, and how he moved with zero wasted effort. Every motion had a purpose.
I would always ask questions and try to learn as much as I could. Right?
Kobe even admitted that Bird was one of the players he modeled his footwork and patience after. And coming from Kobe, that's about as high a compliment as it gets. When you stack up all these stories, Magic, Dominique, Payton, Kemp, Kobe, it all becomes crystal clear. These were different generations, different styles, and yet every single one of them reached the same conclusion. Larry Bird wasn't feared because he could jump higher or run faster. He was feared because the best players alive couldn't stop him from doing exactly what he said he would do. And to seal it all, even the GOAT himself had to give it up.
Bird wasn't scary because of what he did. He was scary because he told you exactly how he'd do it.
That's right, Michael Jordan. He confirmed everything people had been saying about Bird since the beginning. When Jordan entered the league in 1984, he was pure flash, all fire, athleticism, and raw skill. But even he couldn't deny that Bird was built differently. Back then, the Bulls weren't anywhere near ready to compete with the heavyweights. And the heaviest of them all, Larry Bird's Boston Celtics. Every time young Michael Jordan walked into the Boston Garden, he wasn't just facing the Celtics, he was stepping straight into Larry Bird's personal fortress. That wasn't just any arena, that was Bird's house. The Celtics were loaded with Hall of Famers, and they didn't just beat the Bulls, they bullied them. Bird made sure Jordan felt every inch of that learning curve. MJ would drop 30, 40, even 50 points sometimes, and it still didn't matter. Boston always walked away with the win. And Bird, he loved making a point out of it. His message was simple. Numbers don't mean a thing if the scoreboard doesn't belong to you. That was Bird's code. It wasn't just about being great. It was about bending the entire game to your will. The perfect example of that came during the 1986 playoffs.
First 2 points of the game for Larry Bird. Celtics have an 11-point lead. Jordan on the rebound.
One of the most iconic basketball moments ever. Jordan dropped an unbelievable 63 points in Game 2 against the Celtics, still the most in a playoff game. The Boston Garden crowd actually gave him a standing ovation. Imagine that, the enemy crowd cheering for you because you were that good. But even after witnessing that, Bird didn't act shocked. He dropped a line that's now legendary. After the game, he said, "That wasn't Michael Jordan out there. That was God disguised as Michael Jordan." Think about that for a second. The best player in the world at that time looked across the court, saw a 23-year-old kid drop 63 on him, and said he'd just seen the divine. But here's the wild part. Even on Jordan's greatest night ever, the Celtics still won. Bird finished with 36 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 assists. Just another day at the office. He wasn't just acknowledging Jordan's greatness. He was reminding everyone that winning is what defines greatness. That game burned itself into Jordan's memory forever. Because when you watch the way MJ developed his mental edge later, the trash talk, the cold stare, the way he turned every slight into motivation, you can see Bird's fingerprints all over it. Jordan learned the psychological side of dominance from watching how Larry broke players down mentally. He took Bird's formula and cranked it up to nuclear level, telling opponents he'd drop 40, then dropping 55, making up grudges just to light a fire inside himself and freak out whoever stood in his way. People always praise Kobe for studying Jordan, but the truth? Jordan studied Bird first. MJ learned that greatness wasn't just about athleticism, it was about control. Larry controlled emotions, pace, and outcomes. And that's exactly what Jordan made his own legacy out of. And that's what makes it crazy, because Jordan feared no one. Not Magic, not Isaiah, not anybody. But when he talks about Bird, the tone changes. It's not arrogance, it's not competition. It's respect, with just a hint of fear behind it. When even the GOAT admits someone got in his head, that's when you know the case is closed. Now here's the real secret to Bird's power. It wasn't one specific skill that made him dangerous. It was the formula, a 3-part masterpiece he repeated every single night. First, his shot making. That jumper was pure art. Compact release, flawless balance, and range that stretched from mid-post to well beyond the 3-point line. You couldn't rattle it. Second, his footwork. Bird's movements were like chess, tiny pivots, subtle pump fakes, and shifts so smooth they froze defenders completely. One wrong lean and you were toast. Third, his passing. Bird was a genius with the ball. He'd bait the help defender, make you think you had him trapped, then whip a pass that exposed your whole rotation, leaving you looking like the one who blew the play. Put all three together, and Bird wasn't just scoring, he was orchestrating outcomes. That's why people said his game felt inevitable. You knew what was coming. But stopping it? Impossible. His predictability was part of the trap. He told you what he'd do, then made you watch it happen anyway. And there are 2 highlights that show that formula in full force. The first, the famous Portland game, where Bird decided to play almost entirely left-handed.
Larry told all of us and the media, he said, tomorrow night's the last game of the trip. I'm going to play this one left-handed.
Bird against Kersey.
Who even does that? He was so confident in his control that he switched hands mid-game, dropping layups and jumpers with his offhand like it was nothing. He still finished with a monster triple-double. That night proved it. When Bird said he could play any way he wanted, it wasn't talk, it was truth. The second, the Xavier McDaniel game winner. Before the play, Bird told McDaniel exactly how it was going to go down, where he'd catch the ball, how many dribbles he'd take, and where he'd pull up from. McDaniel knew every detail, and Bird still did it exactly as described. Swish, game over. But here's where the story takes a turn, because even legends bleed. Bird's dominance came from rhythm and repetition, and when that rhythm got broken, the cracks began to show. When the shots stopped falling or injuries caught up with him, things changed. That part of his story doesn't get told as much because everyone loves the myth of Bird calling his shots and never missing. But the truth is, Larry Bird wasn't untouchable. He was human. And what happened when his body couldn't keep up with that genius mind? That's where the next chapter of his story takes us. There were nights when even Larry Legend couldn't call his shot, nights when the trash talk missed its mark, when that perfect jumper rimmed out, when the prophecy didn't hit. Those moments mattered because they reminded everyone that Larry Bird wasn't some basketball god from another planet. He was human, but what really slowed him down wasn't defenders. It was his own body turning against him. By the late 80s and early 90s, the pain started to take over. His back, that same backbone that carried Boston for years, began betraying him. Chronic back issues made it tough for him to even sit down, let alone play 40 grueling minutes of basketball. The surgeries, the rehab, the hours on the bench, all of it chipped away at his dominance piece by piece. Yeah, there were still flashes of brilliance, those nights where he'd turn back the clock and drop a classic Bird performance, but you could see how much it cost him to pull it off. And yet, the struggles didn't erase his legacy, they amplified it. Because when he did light up the court, it felt even bigger, even more sacred. Every bucket became a reminder of his heart, his toughness, his refusal to fade quietly. When the rhythm hit, when those Boston Garden lights reflected off the parquet floor, Larry didn't just play basketball, he commanded the atmosphere. Dominique Wilkins once said it best, playing Bird in the Garden was something different. You weren't just going up against Larry, you were fighting the crowd, the floor, and the history all at once. That old Garden gave him power, like it was feeding off the ghosts of championships past. And that's the next layer of the Bird story. It wasn't just Larry you had to face, it was the entire aura of Boston basketball. Because Boston wasn't just a city, it was an amplifier. The old Garden wasn't fancy like today's arenas. It was tight, sweaty, and hostile. The air felt heavy, like the walls were leaning in on you. The parquet floor had dead spots everywhere. And guess what? The Celtics knew every single one of them. Opponents hated it, but Bird thrived on it. That floor, those rims, that roar from the stands, they were his weapons. And then there were the fans. Boston fans weren't just passionate, they were ruthless. Every Bird bucket made the place explode. Every opponent's miss was greeted with mocking cheers. And if you were unlucky enough to be the poor soul getting cooked by Larry that night, oh, they'd make sure you heard about it all game long. There was nowhere to hide. And it wasn't just the fans, it was the team culture. Red Auerbach built that dynasty on pure intimidation, toughness, and winning. Larry's crew, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson, Cedric Maxwell. They weren't just teammates, they were enforcers. You try to rough up Bird, you'd end up dealing with that front line, and trust me, you didn't want that smoke. That's why Boston magnified the fear factor. Facing Bird in the Garden wasn't just guarding one man, it was a full-on psychological war. You had to go against the banners hanging overhead, the echo of championship rings, and a fan base that fed off your discomfort. No wonder visiting teams walked in already feeling like they were down 10 points before tip-off. And that leads to one huge question. How would Larry Bird's intimidation translate to today's NBA? It's a fascinating thought. On one hand, the modern game is faster, flashier, and packed with elite athletes. Guys are longer, stronger, and defenses switch everything. The pace is relentless, the spacing wider, and social media turns every play into a highlight within seconds. But on the other hand, Bird's skill set feels built for any era. A 6'9" forward who could shoot the lights out from deep, rebound like a big, pass like a point guard, and run an offense with ice in his veins. That kind of all-around game never goes out of style. Larry might not have been jumping out of the gym, but he didn't need to. His mind, his precision, and his swagger were timeless weapons. Drop him into today's NBA, and you can bet he'd still be talking trash, still calling shots, and still making defenders look silly while doing it. The game might have changed, but the fear, that would stay the same. That's basically the blueprint for a modern superstar. The crazy part, Larry Bird was doing it decades before it became the standard. But what made him different from today's flashy stars was how he did it. He didn't need viral dunks or ankle-breaking crossovers plastered all over social media. His highlights didn't live in hashtags, they lived in your nightmares. Larry's trash talk wasn't dropped in cryptic tweets or slick Instagram captions. It happened in real time, right in your face. with a grin that made you question your whole game. He didn't hide behind screens. He owned the court. And about that so-called slow game, don't believe the hype. It wasn't slow, it was surgical. Bird played at his own pace, and that's exactly what destroyed defenders. He controlled the tempo, forced you to move how he wanted, and punished every overreaction. Luka Doncic gets the same critique today, that he's too slow. But just like Bird, defenders still can't speed him up. Larry had that same icy control decades earlier, but with sharper shooting and a way nastier edge in his words. The idea that Bird couldn't hang in today's NBA? Come on, that doesn't hold up when you realize guys like Luka, Jokic, and Kevin Durant are dominating right now using the same skill set. High IQ, pinpoint shooting, court vision, and confidence that borders on arrogance. That's Bird DNA all over the modern game. So, if you dropped prime Larry Bird into today's league, would he survive? No way. He'd thrive. He'd torch modern defenses, talk his talk, and probably have half the league questioning their careers by mid-season. So maybe the real question isn't, could Bird survive today? It's whether anyone else could handle him. What do you think? Could today's stars keep up with prime Larry legend? Drop your take in the comments, hit that like button, share it with your crew, and make sure to subscribe. Because this debate, it's just getting started. See you on the next one.